Good evening, everyone. Hi, Lee. Hi, Rose. Nice to see you. We are going to start in about 3 minutes, but as we're waiting, we're very excited you're here. But as we're waiting, if you would put your name and your county and how you felt about your last board meeting. Ronald, can you go to the next slide just so people can see that as they're coming in? There you go. Yeah, just put that in the chat, how you felt about your last board meeting. And if none of these words describe it, just tell us what the word is. Let's see. Okay. Great. We're just going to wait a few minutes. So far, I have Rose and Lee. Is that correct, Ronald?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. Imperial County, thanks. And you felt happy. That's wonderful. That's always a good feeling. Nice. And we're going to talk more about how people felt in the icebreaker. So right now we're just trying to get your kind of your temperature about it. We appreciate you guys being early. We hope your day is going well. And you can come off mute if you want to chit chat before everyone comes on. That's fine. We're glad to just welcome you. And actually, we were having a conversation before you came on about how some of us have been ambassadors in the community. So we're going to share that a little bit about different ways that we are ambassadors into our communities. It's kind of fun to exchange, hear what different people do. Great. Well, just about another minute.
Rosemary, right? Rose? That's from Tuolumne.
Rose was.
It's from Tuolumne. Rose is from Tuolumne County.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, finally, I got the
On
right
the board for a little
email.
while.
Okay.
I got the right email address.
Right. And then April, I believe, is signed up and she's a brand new board member.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And Rose, feel free if you want to put your county and your how you felt about your last board meeting in the chat. And we're going to get going in about a minute. Great. Let's see, Dave. All right. Well, it's 6 o'clock. Kind of inclined to start. What do you guys think? Should we wait another few like 30 seconds, or should we just go ahead? Okay. I hear Patricia.
Sorry, I just said sometimes people have a hard time getting in.
Yeah. Okay. We'll wait a few more minutes. Hey, Patricia, welcome. Glad to have you. We're asking people to put their name and their county and how they felt about their last board meeting. And we have some feeling emojis, but you can put something else in if none of these capture your fancy here. Okay. I think I'm kind of inclined to go forward. There's 2 more people in the waiting room. Once they come in, I think I'm going to start. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you guys for being here. We are very excited to have you. This is our 2nd out of 4 Starting Strong events for new and newish board members. So we want you to settle in, put your name in the chat, your county, and how you felt about your first board meeting or your last board meeting. And this will help us with our icebreaker activity. So I am Bina Lefkowitz. I'm the president of ACCBE. And I want to welcome you on behalf of our amazing team of board members who are here to share their expertise tonight around the role of county boards as appellate bodies. That team includes Beverly Gerard from San Mateo, Juliana Ferriani from Tuolumne, and Ed Conrado from Colusa County, plus our wonderful tech person, Ronald, and also our treasurer, Yvonne Chen. Again, if you're just joining us, please put your name in the chat, the county, and how you felt about your last board meeting. If I could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so we have a packed meeting. We're going to start with an icebreaker, then a review of what was covered last month around board and superintendent roles, then a dive into being an appellate body, finishing with time for your burning questions or issues. If we run out of time, we're all willing to stick around at the end to talk about some of your hot issues that you are on the top of your mind. So ACCB, can I have the next slide, please? ACCB is a relatively new organization. We are the only statewide organization solely by and for county board members. And as a peer-run and peer-led organization, we have 4 goals. Ronald, would you mind muting everyone but me? Thanks. So we have 4 goals. The first is to advocate on state and federal policies that directly impact county boards. The second is to build coalitions and partnerships with those who share our values and our issues. The third is to empower and engage our members to know each other, to be resources to each other, and to be effective board members. And the fourth is to focus on innovations and best practices so that we can move beyond the status quo and get better outcomes for our students. Because when you look at the data, it continues to tell us that we're far from this North Star. Next slide, please. So we have several member benefits. Again, on advocacy, we're advocating for our young people and our county boards. We have our first advocacy meeting coming up on March 26th. We hope you'll join us, or you'll send us your concerns that you want us to address on the legislative side. We are hosting ledge forums. We have a second one planned, we hope for May, we're working on. And we really want to help you connect to your legislators so that you can share with them what county boards do and do some advocacy. And I am curious, do many of you feel like your legislators already know you by name? Because that's our goal, is to have our legislators know us. In terms of partnerships, we meet regularly with the county SUPs, and we're launching a partnership with the Small School Districts Association. And we are also, I just today talked to the Office of Youth and Community Restoration, who wants to work with us. We also opportunities to learn together and network with peers. Our first quarterly networking meeting is coming up March 17th. And we're also hoping to launch some kind of monthly group coaching sessions once a month for board members who want to talk about hot issues. We have a one-on-one mentoring program, and we're encouraging all of you to consider signing up. It's on-demand one-on-one coaching. We also are looking at workshops on emerging issues in education so that are topics of concern to county board members, like court and community schools. And later this year, we hope to launch a resource library to provide resources for county board members. So can you go to the next 2 slides, please? Because I pretty much covered them. So I talked a lot about that. And then this is our on-demand coaching program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ed to do our icebreaker. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Bina. Excuse me, I apologize. I have a scratchy voice. I'm in the middle of a cold. I'm sorry. Welcome to all. To help to get to know each other a little bit better, in just a minute, we'll have you, each of you, please say your name, your county, and how long you've been a board member. And we'll each take turns doing that. And after that, then we're going to ask the question, how did the last board meeting go? And I noticed one of you said there were some exciting things going on. Also, you may have some questions. So who would like to start with their introduction? Patricia, how about you? You're on my screen.
So Patricia Love, San Mateo County. And how long? Since December on the board? And two things from the meeting just came to mind. One was we have an opening on our board, and it seemed like there was generally consensus on, we had 9 people apply to be appointed. And it seemed like we had pretty good consensus on who to interview. We're going to interview 3 people. So that was nice. We weren't like completely all over the map, which could have taken place. So I thought that was a real positive. And I did feel like one point there was a little bit of a misunderstanding again about the role of the board versus the superintendent in terms of like interacting with staff. And there was some confusion. I felt a little bit about it, but I think it was resolved in the end. So that was good.
Okay, thank you very much. Who would like to volunteer next? Okay, Lee, thank you. I can't hear Lee.
Lee, we can't hear you.
Is that any better?
Have you got it?
You have it? Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Lee.
I apologize.
No worries.
Anyway, my name is Lee Davis with Imperial County. And just like Patricia, I was elected in November. So it's been 3 months. And our last meeting went extremely well and very, very smooth. It was short. It was an hour, 15 minutes, and there were no challenges. It was most of it actually was a presentation on the fiscal side, which thankfully I have school business knowledge. And I really at this moment I really don't have any questions. The last meeting we had was
Okay.
very, very helpful for me. And I
good.
used the knowledge that I learned. I think Mina shared about making sure that we know our school districts that we're over. So at our last meeting that we had for all the school boards, I went around and met some of my cohorts to let them know that I would be coming and sharing at their meetings what the county board does in support for the schools. So that was a win for me.
Sounds so great when you apply what you've learned in these. Thank you very much, Lee. Okay, who's next?
I'll go
Rose?
next, if you'd like.
Sure.
So my name is Colleen Denny Garamendi. I'm from Calaveras County. I'm actually not a new board member. I'm
Okay.
new relative to my other board members. 2 have been on the board for close to 30 years. So I feel brand new, even though I've just finished my first term. But I'm also I'm a new chairperson. So that is a new role for me. So I'm trying to kind of learn that process. So in our last meeting, I did have one challenge where I had our board interacting with someone who was there for public comment. So that was a little bit challenging for me, not wanting to just kind of wanting to follow the normal protocols of running a meeting, but also not wanting to be so stringent that I kind of hinder dialogue.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was a
Okay.
challenge.
Well, thank you very much. Who's next? Ron? Are you there, Ronald?
I'm just the tech guy, so. move
Oh,
on.
oh, sorry, sorry. I'm trying to get to my screen here. Who hasn't gone yet? Is that everybody?
No, this Yvonne, would like to welcome Parag Gupta from San Francisco
Oh,
and
welcome,
Melissa Higgins. Those are the two just dialed in.
Parag and Melissa.
Yeah, let's see how is San Francisco these days.
Yeah. Parag, how are you?
Hi everyone. How are you doing? I'm Parag. I'm a new school board member in San Francisco Unified School District. We are both a county and a unified school district. So wonderful to meet you all. I look forward to understanding. We often talk about what we do as unified, but very rarely as a county. So I am here to be a sponge. And I
Thank you very
apologize
much.
if I go off screen. I am just grabbing some dinner before my next thing. So I appreciate
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
appreciate your grace.
No problem, Parag. Thank you. Okay, who else do we have?
Hi there.
Amber.
Yes, I am
Hi, Amber.
also in cooking dinner and have two little kids here without my husband, so I'm juggling as well. But
No
I'm
problem.
probably gonna end video myself after the introduction so I can get back to that and just listen. But I'm Amber Johnson, and I am a newly appointed board member for Placer County. I am lucky enough to sit on board with Dr. Patterson, who's here on this call as well. The last meeting, it was really long. I think it was over 3 hours. But it was really informational. I mean, we went over LCAPs, we had some guest speakers. I felt like we were making a difference, which was wonderful because that's why I'm here. And I'm just also here just to learn and be a sponge as well. I have a lot to learn, I feel like, after sitting in
Well,
these meetings for the last 3 months.
Well,
So,
don't we all have a lot to learn? I'll tell you.
and I appreciate all you guys and this forum as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, are we missing anyone?
Well, Melissa.
Melissa.
Melissa, just
Melissa.
join us.
I just joined. Apologize.
Thanks,
I'm
Melissa. Come on in.
doing one of the juggles also this evening, but I got it together. So I'm Melissa Higgins, and I was newly appointed, or I'm newly appointed to the Tuolumne County Board. The last couple of meetings went pretty well. I think I have a lot of questions, and so what I'm juggling with is knowing like what's a question because it's like a valid question, or what's a question because I'm still learning and I have information that I need to gather, and so I am starting to like feel more comfortable speaking up at meetings, but I think
Good.
that's been my biggest challenge because I'm a little I'm always a little nervous at saying something that's like, oh, well, I should have already known that, but I'm getting over that.
Well, thank you very much. And that's a normal feeling, by the way.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Okay. Is that everyone, Yvonne?
Correct.
I
I am keeping track for you.
Rose hasn't spoken yet.
Oh, Rose.
Oh,
Are you there, Rose? Hello, Rose. Well, we can go back to Rose. Yvonne, did you let her in already?
Yeah, she's been
Yeah.
here, but I don't know. She maybe we could go
Okay.
on and we
We'll
could
catch
catch
you.
up with her.
We'll catch up with her. Okay. Now, excuse me. Thank you all for sharing. Next slide, please. We're going to have a short review of our last meeting's key topics related to board member superintendent roles and responsibilities. And we all have many things, do many things as board members. A few key roles are being prepared. This is so important. You can't really understand what's going on if you haven't read the material and asked questions. Setting direction, creating structures, creating positive environment, ensuring accountability, being an ambassador for education and advocating for our students. Beverly, what are you going to be doing soon? That's an example of that.
Well, actually, I am going to be one of the examiners at one of our high schools for their senior projects. So I'm very, very excited about that. It's going to be an all new experience for me. And I'm also going to be spending almost all day this coming Friday reading at one of our K through 12s or K through 6th schools. So I'm excited about that as well. And it's a great way to be an ambassador and advocate not only for us, but for our students as well. So very pleased.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly. Appreciate that. And I'm going to be judging the STEM competition in our county next week. So those are the sorts of things that you can become involved and visible. Okay, up next, we have Juliana.
Okay, next slide. This is the review of working together. On the county board side, we have our appellate role, purchasing, leasing, and conveying real property, governing court and community schools, authorized under governor charters, set the superintendent's salary, which is always a very interesting process, review the annual audit, and approve the LCAP. And then the county superintendent on their side has what they do. If you notice in the middle, we have our shared vision and mission, our student outcomes, our budget, court and community schools, charter schools, and community engagement and advocacy. That's what the superintendent and the county board does together. If you notice on the county board side, what we're doing is we're governing and setting expectations. We evaluate reports and we adopt policies towards these goals. On the side of the superintendents, you're noticing that they're leading and managing, they're monitoring progress and reporting back to the board how programs are doing. Also developing plans and reporting back to the board about those plans. So, because a lot of times the board has to pass those plans. So there's a lot of shared governance things in that middle. One thing that I would ask you is, are you noticing the blurry lines between what the board does and the superintendent does? We each have different roles and responsibilities, but we are all responsible for the same thing, which is student success. So I'm going to pass it along to Beverly. With the next slide, please.
Okay, thank you very much. You will see in big black letters the trustee handbook. And this is truly a guide, as you will see at the top, to shared governance for county boards of education. And I call it the Bible for county board members, because in this handbook, you will find detailed information on everything we do. And it's roles and responsibilities, working together, special topics in law and governance, case studies. And when you really get into being a board member, you're going to find out that there's lots and lots of questions. This handbook is available for you to see and print out on our website. And I encourage every single one of you to do it, because especially printing it out. I keep mine right next to me and in my briefcase. And I cannot tell you how often I refer back to it for information. Next slide, please. Are there any questions or comments on anything that we've covered so far? I can't see. So are there? No? Okay, then,
Beverly,
yes.
this is Yvonne. Because I've been working, closely with various counties, and I definitely understand from San Francisco. I think Barack's comment about the fact that San Francisco is one district and one county. So Barack, don't worry, we will contact you and plus all the other four who are just, started in your role of the uniqueness of San Francisco. So hang in there, and the handbook, you certainly can go and access that, but also tell your other four other new members to do so. But meanwhile, we will outreach to your superintendent and your board president in terms of your unique needs too, okay?
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Next slide, I think.
Tonight, we're going to be talking about your role as an appellant body. And this is one of the most important things that county boards do in regards to working with districts. Next slide, please. Anytime that the county board is listening to any kind of an appeal, it's going to be a very highly emotional experience. And like most elected bodies, the county board will hear appeals and decide certain appeals regarding students in districts throughout your county. It's unique to the county boards, and it's something that is very, very important for us to do. There actually are 3 different kinds of appeals that a county board will hear. Number 1 is student expulsions from local districts. Number 2 is inter-district transfer denials by local districts. And number 3 is denials, non-renewals, or revocation of charter school petitions by a school district in the county. And tonight we're going to be covering expulsions and inter-district transfers, and we will do another session on charter schools. Next slide, please. Again, any kind of an appeal is a difficult and highly sensitive role for the county board. And in these hearings, issues may be highly charged. Sometimes it's by the students, sometimes it's by the districts, sometimes it's by us, and sometimes it's a combination of all of the above. The board will find itself in the middle, and you need to remember that that's going to happen. Within the parameters of the law, the board may be called upon to make very difficult and or unpopular decisions. And I think that's really, really important for you to understand, that in some of the decisions you're going to have to make, somebody is not going to be happy. But it's so important that you do your job. You must be very careful to follow the procedures and timelines specified by the law. Consult legal counsel as appropriate. Conduct hearings objectively and professionally to determine the facts, and make the best decision for the parties involved, and be careful not to divulge confidential student information. These are held in closed sessions, which means that the information that is shared is confidential. Can I have the next slide, please? Students who are expelled by the board of a local district may appeal the expulsion to the county board within 30 days of the district action. And the student has the right to have a parent or guardian present at the hearing, has the right to an interpreter or translation of the documents, a record of the proceedings, and to have an attorney or community advocate present. Next slide, please. Now, there are very, very strict timelines, procedures that need to be followed by the board, the superintendent, and the districts in an expulsion appeal. The county board or hearing officer or administrative panel is required to hold a hearing within 20 days of the appeal and make the decision within 3 days of the hearing, unless the student requests postponement. And you'll notice that I said county board or hearing officer or administrative panel. Some counties do have either hearing officers or administrative panels. The county board must conduct the hearing in closed session unless the student requests in writing at least 5 days in advance for the hearing to be conducted in public. Board can go into executive session for deliberations. So usually you will move into closed session. You will hear from all of the participants in the expulsion. And then when the board is ready to go in and make a decision, they can move into executive session for deliberations. And the superintendent or their designee is responsible for scheduling the hearing, consulting with school district personnel, consults with the parent, guardian, or responsible adult, and provides a copy of the written transcripts of the expulsion hearing and supportive documents. So the back work of an expulsion hearing, as you can see, is done by the superintendent or the designee in the office. And it's the board that actually, you will read all of this information. You will get a nice, big, fat, thick packet, and you need to make sure that you read it and study it. And if you have any questions, you usually can contact the superintendent or the attorney for clarification. Next slide, please.
Hey, Beverly, there was a
Yes.
question. What is an executive session?
An executive session where the board actually goes in to a room or whatever, and it's only the board. There's no one else in there except if they invite the attorney. There's no superintendent, there's no other participants from the expulsion hearing, just the board members.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Next slide, please. The county board is mandated to adopt rules and regulations establishing procedures for expulsion appeals, which include the requirement for filing a notice of the appeal, setting a hearing date, the furnishing of notice to the students and school board regarding the appeal, procedures for the conduct of the hearing, furnishing a copy of the expulsion hearing record by the district to the county board, the preservation of the record of the appeal hearing, and any other requirement desired by the board. And you really need to make sure that you have looked at your policies, your board policies regarding appeals. And you will have different sets of guidelines for an expulsion or for an inter-district, which Juliana will talk about in just a few minutes. But it's very important that you know all of these things. Next slide, please. When a county board is reviewing a district's decision, it must limit its review to very specific conditions. These conditions are delineated in Ed Code section 48922, which are primarily procedural. And one of the biggest differences is that the board cannot open up the entire expulsion process again. It must use the evidence and transcripts from the previous school board hearing. And these are the things that you will consider. Whether the school district acted without or in excess of its jurisdiction, which would be things like time period violations were made. The expulsion was not based on acts specified by law as forming the basis for an expulsion, or the expulsion was not based on acts related to school activity or attendance, or whether the school district conducted a fair hearing. Next slide, please.
Beverly, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
That second one of whether the school district board conducted a fair hearing is really important. It's also really important that that district has a record of the proceedings, and that the parent and the board are given copies of that record, of that recording. That's really, really important. We had a case where we had an expulsion appeal, and the school board said, "Oh, we're really sorry, but the recording was lost, or it didn't record." And we're like, "Oh well, remanding it back to you then for a redo." So it's very important to make sure that you have that recording.
Thank you. Number 3 is whether there was prejudicial abuse of discretion by the school district. And again, procedural requirements were not met. The decision to expel was not supported by findings, or the findings were not supported by evidence. And when the school board makes a decision, not only do they have to say that the student has been expelled, but they have to have findings. Why? And those have to go along with the expulsion announcement. So there has to be findings that are supported, and findings that were not supported by evidence. Whether the relevant evidence was improperly excluded by the school district board, or new evidence that could have reasonably been discovered exists. And we have found sometimes that the districts have actually not allowed witnesses for the student or the family to testify.
Yes.
And so that would be relevant of improperly conducting the board hearing right there. That's a good example. Now, the county board is, and Juliana just brought it up, they also can remand the expulsion appeal back to the district when relevant evidence was not available or was improperly excluded. County board finds that expulsion was not supported by the findings required by Ed Code 48922. And I highly recommend, even though the Ed Code can be very scary, to ask possibly your attorney to give you what the Ed Code says in that particular session. But evidence supporting any of those findings exists in the record. It must remand the matter back to the district board for adoption of the required findings. So it goes back, and the board needs to start over. Next slide, please. The county board enters an order either affirming or reversing the decision of the district board. If the county board reverses the decision, it may direct the district board to expunge any record referring to the expulsion. And again, I want to remind you that in an expulsion hearing, you aren't going to be hearing the expulsion. Even if you don't approve of what the county or the district board did, that is not your order of business for an expulsion hearing. Your decision needs to be made on just procedural things, as I was just explaining. Next slide, please. Are there any questions?
There is a question in the chat, Bev. It says, if the regular board meeting falls within the 20 days, can the expulsion hearing take place during the regular board meeting under closed session, or must the expulsion hearing always be a special board meeting? It's a great question.
It is an excellent question. And usually the expulsion hearings are conducted at a regular board meeting. Unless there's a reason why it can't, or the board meeting doesn't fall within the proper timelines. I know that ours are conducted during our board meetings, and we just move into closed session. Are there any other questions?
I had a question, Bev.
Okay.
So were the choices, if the hearing isn't done properly at the school district, does the county board have the choice to remand it, or can it just deny, or reverse the appeal? What do I want to say? Basically, reverse the decision of the school district.
Yes, we can. We can just deny approve the appeal. If they have not followed proper procedures, that is grounds for us to approve the appeal.
Or you can remand it as well. You can do either or.
Well, it depends. There's very specific, and I don't have the slide in front of me. For remanding it, there's very specific criteria. So just because maybe you don't want to make a decision, you can't just remand it back. You have to, can we go back a couple of slides where it was talking about remanding? Just a second. The county board can remand the case back to the district when relevant evidence was not available or improperly excluded, or county board finds that expulsion was not supported by the findings required by Ed Code 48922. But evidence supporting any of those findings exists in the record. It must remand the matter back to the district board for adoption of the required findings. So that's the very specific part of it. And it's more about evidence, where most of the expulsions that come to a board, you'll find that it's because they have not followed the proper procedure.
This is Yvonne. For example, Patricia, usually, students eligible for special education, but unfortunately, the IEP was not included. That's an example of then you got to remand back so that they can kind of do the entire special ed process, which was excluded.
Okay, I think we can move forward if there aren't any more questions. And I'm going to turn it over to Juliana.
Well, good evening, and I'm going to do the portion on interdistrict transfers. Next slide, please. Ed Code 46600, interdistrict attendance agreements and permits. An interdistrict agreement must be approved by both the student's original district or residence and the district to which the student seeks to transfer to. Districts may enter into an interdistrict attendance agreement for up to a 5-year term and include terms and conditions for approval and denial of permits. Individual permit issued by district of residence, valid upon approval by the district of proposed enrollment. When I first joined my board, we have 12 districts in our county. We had 13 districts in our county. None of them had a policy, an interdistrict policy. And the superintendents were very angry at the board. Well, they did have an informal policy, and that informal policy was, we'll take anybody who wants to come, but we're not letting anybody go. That was basically their policy of every district. And the superintendents kept coming to the county board, and they were very upset that we kept granting interdistrict appeals to students, and they wanted to know why. And so I met with superintendents and I told them, your policy, you have policies, an informal policy that you'll take anybody, but you don't let anybody go. And so the board is having to, we had a very comprehensive policy, and I said, so this is our policy. So you need to read this, and this is what we're going to do when these cases come to us. It wasn't long after that that they started, that there was developed a countywide, through all the districts, of an actual policy between the districts for what they would grant interdistrict transfers to. So I think that's really important that those exist. Next slide, please. It is the county board's role to conduct an objective review of the relevant facts from the pupil, parent, guardian, and local school districts involved. That will come during the hearing. If the local school districts have an interdistrict attendance agreement and the district board within 30 days of a parent's request either fails to act on the request or refuses to grant the transfer, the parent has the right to appeal to the county board. Excuse me. And I wanted to reiterate what Beverly said. It could be the county board, some have an administrative panel, or some other mechanism to review these interdistrict transfers. I want to tell you that interdistrict transfers, if you have not yet had one, the appeal, they're very emotional. You can have students crying, you can have parents crying, you can have the parents at the district office trading barbs back and forth. It's really important that the president of the board has control over the meeting. And it's very important that you know your policy, because that's what's going to be very helpful with the recriminations and with the tears and the emotionality of the hearing. Next slide, please. Parents may appeal within 30 days of the final decision of the district to deny the request. They have 30 days. Failure to file a timely appeal to the county board is good cause to deny the appeal, although the county board may extend an additional 5 days for good cause. Whatever your board policy or culture deems to be good cause is what you would look at. After the appeal is filed, the board has 30 calendar days to determine if the student should be allowed to transfer to the requested district. The county superintendent's designee has the responsibility to determine that all remedies have been exhausted at the district level and whether or not there is additional information that may be useful. The county board conducts its own separate review of the information as presented by the parent and the district during the hearing. The board shall grant or deny the appeal based on its merits, and a decision must be rendered within 3 school days of any hearing conducted. When an appeal is granted, the board may only determine the requested district, not a particular school. And so Beverly and I were, when we were going over our slides, we had a very interesting conversation about this, because in my county, we have all these different districts and there's only 1 school per district. So if appeal comes in, it's to that particular school. In her county and many others, there are multiple schools within a district. So you can approve that appeal to go into that district, but you cannot determine which school the student will attend.
And just, I'm going to jump in for 1 second on
Yes,
that.
please.
Almost every single interdistrict transfer appeal that you will hear, they will be requesting a school.
Mhm.
You, not just the district, but a school.
And
So they
yeah, so
are,
that's what, you're right, sorry.
that's okay. So you want to make sure that your president says right at the beginning, because they're the one running the appeal, that you can only determine the district, not the school.
And that should be in your policy also. It's
Yes.
very important for the county board to have its own clear and comprehensive interdistrict policy for board and for board members to know that. So to know what's in that policy. Next slide, please. There are limits to what the county board can do with an interdistrict transfer appeal. They have no authority to determine the specific school within the school district where the pupil will be enrolled. This authority is reserved for the school district of attendance. We have no authority to hear denial of an interdistrict transfer request by a pupil under consideration for expulsion or who has been expelled, excuse me. No authority to hear a denial of an intra-district between schools within the same district. So when Beverly was talking about multiple schools within a district, if a student wants to attend a different school within that district, an intra-district, we don't have the authority to hear that appeal. And that is by Ed Code 35160.5 section B. We have no authority to hear a dispute over the placement of a special education pupil or the services provided to a pupil with disabilities. Such a dispute should be handled by the district of residence through special education procedures. And I think that in my experience is coming to the forefront of a lot of special education appeals. So just be on the lookout for that, knowing that you cannot hear those. Next slide, please. Interdistrict student transfer appeals, roles and responsibilities. The hearing should be held in closed session unless requested by parents to be held in open session. This is done for student confidentiality. We try and protect a student's privacy. We don't want just anybody walking down the hallway or whatever to hear what's going on in one of these appeals. The county superintendent attends the hearing as the secretary for the board. The board president conducts the hearing. The County Office of Education is responsible for collecting and providing the paperwork and information to the board. The board does not investigate the denial. So you do not go out on your own. That all of that information should be brought to you. The county office needs to make their interdistrict appeal process as clear as possible for the parents in the school district. And we have part of an example at the end of the slideshow of what that can look like, a visual of showing parents, first you do this step, then you do this step, then you do this step, because it can be very confusing sometimes for parents to navigate the appeal process. Make sure the board has an interdistrict transfer appeal policy that parents and school districts can access so that they understand your procedures, deliberations, and decisions. And it's a good idea to read the district's interdistrict transfer policies. For example, in one of the last appeals that I participated in, I didn't realize that for one of the schools in their interdistrict transfer appeal policy, that students had to appeal or put forth an interdistrict transfer request by a certain date. It was something like the end of April or something like that. And that's clearly in their policy, clearly told to parents. So it's really important that you also, when you have an appeal coming in, that you have read and understand the school district's policy. Next slide, please. This is something that on bullying and inter-district transfers that most board members, district and county, don't realize. That districts must give priority for inter-district attendance to students who have been bullied. Districts of residence must approve requests for inter-district transfers for victims of bullying. Sorry about that. Must approve requests for inter-district transfers for victims of bullying, and districts of proposed enrollment must accept such students. A pupil who, after an investigation of a formal written complaint, has been determined to be a victim of an act of bullying, there's your ed code numbers, shall at the request of the parents be given priority for inter-district attendance. District of residence shall not prohibit the inter-district transfer of a victim of an act of bullying if there's no option for an intra-district transfer. So because bullying there's been so many issues, it's really important to know those ed codes and if those must be approved. Next slide, please. What happens on the day of the appeal? On the day of the appeal, the family may be present and may have a lawyer, and the student may be present or may not be present. The district is present. Open or closed session preferred for student confidentiality. Each side presents for allotted time to make their case and rebuttal. Board may ask questions for information and clarification. Board deliberates in executive session. And once again, executive session is the board. It's not anybody else, it's just the board. In our case, we just stayed in our meeting room and we told everybody else they needed to go wait out in the hall until we made our decision. Or the board has 3 days to make a decision. Next slide, please. So this is part of the example of what a visual can look like on a county board's website to show parents exactly the procedures that they need to follow. And next slide, please. So for questions, thoughts, and reflections, have you had to deal with an appeal yet? And what was it like? Do you know what your board policies and rules are and where you find them? Does your board have a handbook or packet of information for appeals? Do you have any questions on the process, the timeline, factors you must use to assess the appeals? Any questions?
Juliana, there's a question in the chat. How does the decision making work if you use the 3-day time frame?
You know, somebody else might have to answer that. We've never done that. We've always most decisions are made at the meeting, but another board member might have had that. May have had that happen.
All of mine have always been the same night.
So have mine.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to mention, if you would like to see an example or examples of handbooks just for either inter-district appeals or expulsion appeals, if you go on the San Mateo County Board of Education website, they are posted there so that you can see examples of exactly what Juliana and I are talking about.
And I will tell you that if you go on any county board's website, there is a tab for inter-district transfers. And you can pull down that tab and find out any information on any other county. Ours was very extensive. We developed ours because for so long the districts did not have agreements. And so we had a pretty extensive packet or policy for the board to follow and that parents and districts could look at so they would know where we were coming from also.
This is Yvonne from Los Angeles County Board. We hear 1,500 a year, so it's huge. So therefore, to answer the question about sometimes the timing wise. So when there is an interpreter, for example, did not show up, or the translation is just not good or sufficient, in that case, we'll postpone it for the following week.
Okay, for a good cause, right? Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, next slide, please.
Wow, that's a lot of content. What a good job. Now it's time for you folks to ask us any questions about being a trustee, your role, or hot issues. We have time for probably one that we can talk about now. Otherwise, you can put it in the chat, and we will stay after the end of the webinar for anyone we'll answer questions or anything that you have to present to us. So does anyone have one burning question or hot issue? Going once, going twice. Okay, if you have a, excuse me, if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will stick around. And next steps, please fill out the survey. We really need your feedback, and if you could do that now, that'd be great. Attend our next Starting Strong event in our 4-part series, April 7th and May 5th. Sign up to be mentored. You can do this on the survey form or email, and review the handbook. And as Beverly said, I think that's really kind of that's the guide that really is really important to become familiar with. Attend our March 17th, 6 to 7:30 Learning Network Sharing County Trustee event, Reimagining CTE. And finally, if you do have any, hopefully you have more than one takeaway for tonight. However, if you could put one in the chat, it'd be great. What's one thing that you learned tonight that is really going to help you to be a more effective trustee? Anything else from anyone? All good? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you all for, yeah.
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to ask people to please fill out the survey because we'll use that to plan the next Starting Strong. And, also, we're here. I know that most of us are going to start seeing our budgets coming up soon. I think they come in May. And, we'd be interested in knowing if something on the budget would be of interest to you guys as well. So thank you for being here. And yeah, we'd love to hear any takeaways. That would be awesome. And you can also speak. You don't have to just chat. You want to take yourself off the mute.
Everybody is so quiet tonight.
I
My
know.
goodness.
But thank you all for coming. Some great comments and questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you very much. That was really helpful. I actually learned a lot, and I will definitely recommend these sessions to my fellow board members.
Wow.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. It was
Appreciate that.
super, super helpful and informative as a new board member, and hearing other people's questions was really interesting too, and hearing the different scenarios that people get themselves into. So thank you all.
Thank you. And Colleen, welcome to ACCBE. Thank you for joining. Calaveras joined us last week, but we're
Yes.
open to anyone. I mean, you don't have to be a member yet, but it is important that we solve all of this situation problem together, whether you're a member or not. But please talk to others, that in Calaveras, saying that, hey, please join the various type of sessions.
We definitely will. And that was just so refreshing when I learned that it wasn't, I was worried. I wanted to get the membership done so our board members can participate in these webinars. But Juliana informed me that, no, this is for everyone. And it was such a refreshing way to approach this. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And Colleen, on Wednesday, we have a webinar for small, single, we call it, small counties, single, and we will be able to share, challenges that you have, and let's see if we can come together with a good plan to strategize how we're going to target, some of these issues.
Yeah, that was really exciting, and I can't be there, but definitely one of my board members, Janet, is going to be there for sure. Thank you guys so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're gonna just hang out, but you all please sign off if you're ready to leave. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye, everybody.
bye.
And maybe our team could just stick around for a few minutes, but yeah, thank you. Okay, and Ronald, you could take the slideshow down too. Thank you.